It's my belief that a lot of people feel helpless and powerless to affect change. The problems are so vast, so massive on such a grand scale that how could one person possibly make a difference? I don't personally believe that that's true. I believe that everybody has something innate in their power that can help affect change, and my goal is to help bring awareness to that fact. Monetary reform in itself, when I first heard it, seemed too big to even comprehend, and again, what could I do to help make a difference? Predominantly, we have the right to print our own money and offer it to society interest-free, yet we give that ability away to private institutions. What does that mean to you and me? A lot of wasted resources. Resources that can go to you, me, our families, our friends, a support network of social programs that, let's face it, when there's a cut, that's the first thing to go. Nobody ever talks about cutting the interest. What can we do about this? Hi, Will.
Hi there. Thank you for inviting me today.
Oh, no, thank you for doing this interview. Maybe we'll just start with a little prelude to this. My intent here is to effectively take steps towards a positive change in society. The pursuit of profit has been a problem for a lot of various factions in society. You've spent a lot of time researching the Canadian monetary system and possible reforms to how that operates. What can we do about this? What is the average guy? It's to say monetary reform, which is obviously something that we need, but how does the average guy take a step in that direction? What can we do collectively to help make that happen?
First of all, we have to understand what money is. And we're never told what it really is. We think it's those pieces of paper and coins, and we don't see beyond that. But who creates the money, and on what basis do they create it? We have to look at these things. Money is indeed, it's an invention of the human mind. It is a very intellectual way of handling a barter system. It isn't money that we produce, it's wealth we produce, and then we print the money tokens to represent the wealth that we produce. It's we, the people, create it to make our wealth grow. And this has to be well understood. If we create it, why on earth are we borrowing from somebody else? The Bank of Canada was created in 1934. It received royal assent on July the 3rd, 1934. R.B. Bennett lost the election within months after that, but the politicians that were pushing for good regulations for the bank, they came into power. William Lyon Mackenzie King understood the money system, but there was the mayor from Vancouver at the time, Gerald Grattan McGeer. He absolutely understood the scam that is built around us not owning the money, somebody else being able to create it, and he did everything he could to correct that. He understood Abraham Lincoln's greenbacks. He understood that money is something that we create on according to the wealth that we are able to create. And so anyway, the Bank of Canada did receive approval, a royal assent, but it was still in private hands. And in 1938, William Lyon Mackenzie King's government, along with the support of the good politicians at the time, nationalized the Bank of Canada. They bought out the shares that were owned by the private people who wanted the central bank. So that central bank could have been created but owned by them. However, when we nationalized it, it became a national bank and it's owned by us. And 100,000 shares were put into the hands of the people, the Bank of Canada could print the money to make happen whatever needed to happen, and it was interest-free, it was debt-free, and the product just happened. And the best example I have of that is 1939, the war came along. Suddenly we needed many things that we didn't before. Here we spent literally billions of dollars building ships, building airplanes, building guns, and looking after all our million boys overseas. We never went into debt because we never borrowed the money.
Right.
The money was printed to make people work, and when people work, they produce wealth. Canada really grew wealthy overnight. We never had a national debt. All this debt here is really what we owed to other nations. The people became quite socially minded during those war years because we were all working together to help one another. We brought in family allowances, old age pensions, universal Medicare, Trans-Canada Highway Act, St. Lawrence Seaway Project. Veterans Land Act helped veterans buy land. It was just an absolute grant from the people of Canada to buy land, to go into farming or start a business. And at the same time, there were people thinking every couple, when they get married, they're going to have children, they're going to need a home, so we will give them a homeowner grant to say for $100,000. It's a way of making a home available for people, and they only pay for it once rather than 3 times like is what's happening today.
So when those grants were given out, were they repayable grants?
They would be repayable grants. Now this didn't actually come into being, but that was the thought was going around at that time.
Right.
Because every family needs a home.
Yeah.
And gosh, we wouldn't have homelessness if we'd followed through on it. This is the wealth that we were able to create because we were not borrowing the money to make these things happen, to pay the workers. We were simply printing it. We weren't building up an interest-bearing debt.
So when and how did that change, and where are we now?
Well, that is a good question. It changed in the 70s. The IMF and the World Bank were being created, and they were to look after global economics. And the bankers were saying, look, we're in the banking business, you shouldn't be. It's not for the people. And so we started borrowing from the banks. And we were also mindful of building up the IMF and the World Bank. But immediately our debt shot up. It was $523.3 billion March 31st, 2005. November 14th, 2006, $798 billion. This is the Fraser Institute report. It's $170 million every day to pay the interest on a debt like this. Or whatever, on that amount, that's $170 million every day to pay interest on that. Even here, the debt stood at a mere $18 billion to $798 billion now. That's an incredible difference. And how could we keep it low here and still produce so much? And that's the question we have to look at. But here the international bankers began to get hold. The corporations were being, if they were profitable corporations, they'd be bought up by a higher and higher level, and you don't recognize who they belong to, but the international bankers, because of all the wealth that we give them, they're controlling the corporations. And then the corporations have to make money for the shareholders rather than make goods and services for the people and pay good wages.
So that $798 billion, what does that mean to me, or to the average guy that's watching this? How am I paying for that? How is the average person paying for that?
Well, we're being taxed to pay for the money that we shouldn't have had to borrow in the first place, and it amounts to, every child born today is roughly $27,000 in debt.
At birth.
At birth, yes. And if we owned our resources, if we didn't use debt money, every child born today would be a millionaire in Canada.
Wow.
And that's the difference. We've been drawn into debt, using debt money, and these are the figures that I got from Jack Bedell, who is a top economist with Ernst & Young. He plotted how much we're paying in income tax here over this 14-year period of time. 619.2 billion income tax. But because we borrow the money from private entities instead of creating it ourselves, this is what we paid in interest over that 14-year period of time. 428.2 billion we gave away to the banks, who buy the corporations, who buy our assets so that we don't own them anymore until we're ready to be put out of our own home.
And the graphs follow each other pretty closely, so it's obvious that there's a direct correlation to our income tax rate as to the interest we're paying
Exactly.
to these private lenders.
Exactly.
Would it be accurate to say that our income tax every year, when we give away our 30% or whatever the tax rate is, 20 to 30% to the government, that's going to no social programs, that's going to nothing that is effectively helping society, it's merely going directly to private institutions?
To private institutions, to the debt-based money system. And as I said, if we create our own money, our government creates our own money, the word taxes should not exist in our vocabulary.
So there's something people should stand up for.
Yeah. So really, taxes, let's stop and try to understand fully what taxes are. Taxes are us, the people, taking some of our wealth that we in the first place have created and giving it away to somebody who has created nothing in terms of goods or services, in terms of real measurable wealth.
They never suffer a loss in any way, shape, or form in this transaction when we give away our funding.
No, that is true. They do not suffer a loss, and their conscience, for some reason, isn't bothered either. And that's the tragedy of it. We have to see the damage that this debt-based money system is doing to us. It puts people on the edge of poverty. People on the edge of poverty have family conflicts then, so homes get broken. Children then don't get the right guidance that they should have. And crimes result because of the edge of poverty, because of first the family conflict, and secondly because people need money to survive. Because of broken homes, there are too many young people not getting a good, healthy start in life. And this is, it's a social problem that we could remedy if we could just have more schools and better kind of thinking collectively, away from war and nasty things, to how to build up a quality society, a quality community. If a country is forced into war and building war machines, pretty well all the countries in the world are under the domination of the World Bank and the IMF. If a nation is put into a war situation, they will borrow and borrow to fight that war and end up deeply in debt. The people do not make money with war efforts. Only the bankers make money. For us, the people, war does not make money. War destroys. War takes away. And if we understand that money is what we create to create our wealth, and if we could create our wealth in terms of war machines, shame on us. But let's create it in terms of helping one another, better health, better education, better transportation. I think the first thing is really to understand that we shouldn't be borrowing money from anyone in the first place. And if we can clearly point this out to our politicians, we should put it to them. Are you going to put the money creation back in the hands of the people? Only we, the people, have the right to create money. They may say they're the experts, but where are they getting this money from? Why don't we create it ourselves? And we have a big debt, as you saw here, of $798 billion. Now, since we have the right to create the money, let's create the $798 billion and give it to them of our legal tender and say goodbye to them. But then we pass a law that says they can't buy our corporations or our resources, but they can certainly buy what we produce. And we love that. But there you are, you're paid off now. It's good Canadian legal tender. Goodbye. And we'll see you at our grocery stores or wherever. Education is what I feel is going to get us back. And people actually beginning to think for themselves. Many people don't fully understand why they're on the edge of poverty, but as they grasp it, they will force their governments to put the creation of money back into the hands of the people. And once that gets done, the solutions are so much easier from there on, because we always create more wealth as individuals than we basically need for our own selves. There's no need for unemployment and need to ever exist side by side. So the two should eliminate each other. And who is the determiner of why we should eliminate? It's us, the people. We're the ones who see a problem. We need a bridge, we need a school, or we need a hospital. We see it, and then we say, okay, we'll honor our brothers and sisters in this community who will build that school or hospital, and we'll give them tokens for which we call money, really. We'll give them so much for doing what they're doing, and then we will honor those tokens that we give him. So all we have to do is print the legal tender and put absolutely everyone to work. Get control of our country.
Take it back.
Yeah. You tidy up your own house first before you go dealing elsewhere. Now our house is Canada, and let's put everybody to work here, and we can. Yeah, we'll produce our own local solutions. What does have to happen is enough people have to understand that the thing isn't right. There's something wrong. And they have to ask and find out what it is that is wrong. And then they have to become familiar with the idea that we create money. So if needs be, let's create Vancouver Island dollars, for example. And learn to recognize that as our own money and trade it with one another. There are just so many little clever ways of doing things, and the people who, like Chemainus dollars, Salt Spring dollars, they came into being because it boosts tourism, whereas we could do it just to help one another out. So I'm pleased that there are such things as Salt Spring dollars or Chemainus dollars, because it gives people an inkling into how money should really work. And in my research, I've come to the conclusion that really the love of money is the root of all evil, and we have to get beyond that. I would like to just say that we are intelligent, creative beings. We know that we can make choice, and we experience our minds here. We know what they do. Let's put them in the direction of just making life the best possible while we are here. Thank you.
Thank you.